Okay, hello everyone, and thank you for joining us today. We're going to talk about growth and changing requirements in the mining industry. Mining companies change as they move along the mining life cycle from exploration to production. As these requirements change in each phase, more functionality is demanded from their business software, including their ERP software. A common approach is to start small and convert to larger systems as you move along the mining lifecycle. The problem with that approach is that conversions can be difficult, expensive, and disruptive. There is a well-deserved fear or phobia about conversions, and we call that convertophobia, fear of data conversions. Today, we'll talk about a different approach to growth, an approach that overcomes convertophobia. My name is Stephanie Velasquez, Sales Executive for Caron Business Solutions. I am located in Lima, Peru. Paul Caron is our CEO, and he will lead the presentation today. Paul is in Vancouver, and he has worked with mining companies since his early years in a northern mining town. Paul has led Caron Business Solutions for over 26 years. Doug Johnson is the Vice President of Solution Architecture with Acumatica, the ERP solution that we support here. Doug is located in Washington, D.C. Now, let me turn this over to Paul.
So welcome, everyone. I'll start with a quick introduction to our firm and then a short presentation about our approach, about 20 minutes or so, and then Doug is going to show you some of the functionality directly in Acumatica. So since 1999, we've served clients with accounting and ERP solutions. We focus on the mining industry, and we really define that as mining companies and companies that serve the mining industry, such as distributors or manufacturers that create products for the mining industry. In today's presentation, I'm going to illustrate my points by referring specifically to mining companies, but these points are relevant to different types of companies, such as manufacturers or distributors. So starting in 1999, we started our journey with Sage, and now we are an Acumatica Gold certified partner. Today, we're speaking to you from 3 different countries, as Stephanie mentioned, and really that reflects the reality of the mining industry. So miners have operations all over the world. So it's very important that we can understand the requirements based on where they operate. Most of our clients are Canadian and US mining companies, and their operations are worldwide: Africa, Mexico, Switzerland. So we have team members in Canada, in Peru, in Ecuador, in Burkina Faso, and in Brazil. We also work with partners in many other parts of the world. So just like the mining industry, our firm basically can cover the world. So that's a bit about us. And now, what's Acumatica and why do we support it? I mentioned that we started as a Sage accounting software partner. Well, Acumatica is a true ERP solution. So what does that mean? Well, in the case of mining, ERP means that besides accounting, Acumatica provides full integrated modules for procurement, inventory control, asset management, project management, payroll, multi-company reporting and analysis, and more. The point being that it's much more than accounting, but it uses accounting systems as the core. And we chose Acumatica because of the platform, which is represented here in the slide, but also the approach that they took to create a highly functional solution for the mining industry. Acumatica is a pure cloud solution that's built for business growth, and it's the fastest growing ERP company in the Tier 2 space over the last 10 years. The single biggest reason that we support Acumatica is that it scales. This is essential because as miners move along the mining life cycle, the requirements for an ERP change dramatically. With Acumatica, we have exploration companies using the software for just core accounting. And on the other end of the mining life cycle, we've got operating mines using Acumatica for all of the things I mentioned before: procurement, inventory, full operations. And the same system handles that for them. So it scales. So let's talk about that famous mining life cycle. We've probably seen various demonstrations or diagrams of what the mining life cycle. This graph really shows the nature of a mining company as it moves along the cycle. At the exploration stage, I mean, it's just spending money and looking for minerals. We can really handle a lot of that functionality with core accounting. But as we move along the mining life cycles, particularly when we get into production, things change a lot. I know that one of the companies on the call today is in the bridge and road construction phase. So they're going to do that and then go back and finish feasibility next year and then get into operations in 2028. So this is typical of when we get involved with our clients and we grow with them, is when they're starting to get into the construction phase and getting serious about a mine. We think that it makes a lot of sense to get involved with something like Acumatica earlier than that, and I'll talk about that today. A mine has got a potential lifetime of many, many years and decades. So getting it right at the start can be a big money and time saver. So through this journey of mining companies moving along the mining life cycle, to commercial production and eventually to closure, where things get from an ERP point of view, they get simpler. But again, one of the attendees on the call today understands that there's a lot of complexity around closure as well. So it is quite a journey. And through that journey, there's two challenges. One is, you got to convert. If you're going to change your software, you've got to go through this conversion issue. Secondly, is if you don't change your software, we've got some software functionality issues that we have to deal with. So let's look at those two challenges from the bottom up. I'm going to start with software functionality. So to illustrate, I'm going to borrow from Charles Dickens and tell you a tale of two CFOs and their journey into the wild world of accounting and ERP software. So the first CFO was Bob, and Bob has taken the start small approach when he got his first accounting software for a young junior mining company. So his plan is to start with QuickBooks and then move up to a real ERP when he needs to. But the reality is that in the mining industry, and things are not that simple. So several realities complicate things. One, many of our clients are multi-company. It's actually quite rare that we have a mining company that's a single legal entity. Enterprise software handles that well, but introductory software doesn't. Approvals. So the auditors want to see segregation of duties. They want to see evidence that we have proper approvals. And the approval workflows that are available in entry-level accounting software is just not rich at all. So there's a bit of a problem. Security can be lax, and especially when companies start doing things in spreadsheets, security is really, really weak in that case. The auditors do not like that. Most mining companies are public, so they have to be audited, and audit concerns are raised. Project accounting. So when mining companies get into drilling and even exploration projects, it's great to have project accounting to individually account for these investments. With entry-level software, project accounting is kind of just a footnote off to the side. We need more functionality than that. And a big one is localization requirements. I just finished talking about how Canadian mining companies, US mining companies operate all over the world. Well, what you do to operate a company in Peru is very different than what you do to operate a company in Toronto. So there's localization requirements that are just not handled well by entry-level accounting software. So what happens is if people start with that and they want to keep moving it, they start to see some warnings where things are just not working anymore. Okay, so manual errors start to creep in. The system is just not handling the volume as it increases. You're growing fast and you're getting more errors happening. More users in the system now need more information. And a lot of times the limitation is that you just can't have more users in the system. There's a limitation or there's not a good way to share the information. Manual tasks are taking far too long, and we're entering into this world of spreadsheets. And then the auditors come along, right? They say, well, you've got to improve things and you just can't do it with your software. You're relying too much on Excel. So these things start to happen when you're limited in functionality. And I want to use like the sailing example here. Like when you're sailing into a storm, there's a saying that the best time to take down the sails is when you first think about it. So in our opinion, the best time to add ERP software is when you first think you may need it. And that's really early in the mining life cycle. So if you don't want to upgrade and you're on an entry level system, you start outgrowing the system fast, as I've just talked about it. And the reason you do that is because no one ever just says, I would really, really love to do a data conversion. And so you end up staying on your system. Well, why? Why are we hesitant to do that? Data conversions are expensive. If you moved way down the mining life cycle to be a producing mine, a conversion at that point could take tens of thousands of dollars, could take 6 months to a year to complete. Very disruptive to your operation. If your licensing is user-based and now you want to add people, your investment can be exceptionally high because you want more users on the system. User-based systems really penalize you for that. When you go through a conversion, it's all consuming. People like us, companies like us, would ask a lot from your people to do testing, to spend time on requirements analysis. Well, everybody's got a full-time job, so these are very disruptive things. And it's hard to learn the new software because you're just used to doing things the old way, right? And because of that, you get some staff resistance. So it's not just the mining industry. No one really likes this idea of conversion. And here's some real world examples. Revlon, when they purchased Elizabeth Arden, they decided to move to SAP S/4HANA, a really huge tier 1 ERP. Well, that project failed and it resulted in losses of $64 million. Nike decided to convert to 3 different software programs in 2000. They had major problems. They lost over 400 million and they had a 20% dip in their stock value. And waste management is actually somewhat of a famous flop. It took a year and a half just to try to get the pilot project working for them. It failed, and they sued SAP for $1 billion. So there's reason to be concerned about conversions. And, if you want to avoid data conversions, we get it. It's completely understandable. And as far as, I won't go as far as to say that a healthy fear of data conversions is a good thing. So we call that convertophobia, a perfectly legitimate fear of ERP data conversions. So what I want to talk about today is a way to avoid this phobia by picking the right ERP solution now so you can eliminate ERP conversions as you grow. So let's talk about another CFO and her approach to this. So Anne said, I'm not going to start small, I'm going to start scalable. And there's a difference, right? Scalable means that we're going to be sticking with one solution, adding to it, adding configurations, adding modules, but no data conversion. Let's get the right solution in at the right time. So she had 4 requirements for this. Number 1, it had to be affordable. In the exploration phase, there's a lot of people pulling at the purse strings. There's a lot of money being spent. You don't necessarily have a huge budget for an ERP solution, so it has to be affordable. You need, for the reasons I just mentioned, mining companies are not like the typical startup. They have all of these complications like multi-company that really require additional functionality. So the software has to have advanced functionality, even though there might be a small number of users at the beginning. Speaking of users, it's got to be easy to add them. You've got to be able to add users easily without breaking the bank, and you've got to be able to add functionality as you grow, as you change. And it's got to be auditor friendly. We talked about that. So how does Acumatica address this? Well, we work with a lot of mining companies, and we chose Acumatica exactly for this reason. So to be affordable to exploration companies, Acumatica has a product called Acumatica Essentials. So Acumatica Essentials is low cost, and to reduce costs even further, there's free training available on Acumatica Open University. We also deploy with fast start deployment plans to keep the implementation costs low. The beauty of this is that it's the same software as you grow and you move to different products within Acumatica, you don't have to convert. So you get advanced functionality right from the start. When you start adding users to the system, Acumatica is consumption-based. So you're not paying per user. You're paying by the use of the system. And I'll talk a bit more about that later. And that the kind of the auditor thing, keeping the auditors happy, well, and keeping yourselves happy, security, embedded workflows in the core product really address that issue. So that's why we chose Acumatica, and we believe it's a good fit for mining companies as they move down the mining life cycle. So just to illustrate this in a little bit more details, the Acumatica Essentials is low price with advanced functionality. There's very little difference between the functionality at the Essentials and the functionality for really large companies using the Enterprise product. As you move up, Select, there's no user limit. It's aimed at companies of about 50 employees. One thing I will say about that is this is guidance that Acumatica provides. But think about a mining company. You're only really using half of an ERP. You're not using the revenue side. There's no order entry. There's no, shipments. None of those things happen until you get to production. So all the way along, you are using just the purchasing side. Thinking about that, we have lots of clients with way more than 50 employees still on the Select product. It's not quite the same as other companies. Prime is the next level up, aimed at companies over 200 employees, and then Enterprise. So this is the really big guys. So, big mining companies that are looking at SAP and Oracle, they don't necessarily have to move to the really grossly expensive tier one solutions, because at the enterprise level, there's enterprise functionality and there's additional resources to support very high volumes of transactions. This diagram shows things in a bit of a different way. There's Essentials, Select, Prime, and Enterprise. And as you can see, at every one of these products, they have different editions. And the editions are really how Acumatica bundles their modules to suit specific industries, like the construction industry, that will include project accounting and project management and things like that. There isn't a specific mining edition, but with Caron Business Solutions, we've created that really by starting with either the construction or the distribution edition, and then adding our implementation methodologies and our knowledge and our reporting to come up with an Acumatica mining solution. We call it Caron Mining Solutions powered by Acumatica. The diagram also shows that at the enterprise level, all of these reserved resources are extra boost to handle these really, really large transaction flows. So scalability is absolutely answered with Acumatica. And that, as I mentioned, was one of Anne's first requirements. So let's look at the other ones. She talked about functionality. So basic exploration company with very few employees at first blush, and entry-level software just ticks all the boxes. You don't need many users, you got basic accounting, you got accounts payable. But is that really true? Because when you think about a mining company, it's a bit different. And so when you add some of the realities like multi-company, there's very limited functionality with entry-level software. Payroll, there's limited functionality. Project accounting, I mentioned that in entry-level software, it's like a department. It's not a full project accounting solution, which is really required for complex projects, especially like constructing a mine. Workflow is extremely limited in entry-level software. So how does Acumatica Essentials look? Well, for every one of these features, Acumatica Essentials provides advanced functionality. So yes, it's affordable. Yes, it's fully functional at an advanced level. And we're going to see some of that a little bit later in the presentation today. A couple of key points to consider though, right? There's there's more functionality. I'm just listing some of the common modules that are in use here, but there's much, much more that we can done with Acumatica. Outlook plugins, inventory. Today we just had a session on automatically creating credit expense reports from credit cards. All of this can be done with Acumatica. But as you start to grow, you might find that you don't need to move off Essentials for a while. It's a very, very functional product. When you start to move to a lot of transaction, that might be the time to go. But it's quite surprising how long you can stay as a mining exploration company, even towards development, without having to change at all. Second is every feature is advanced, which I've kind of drummed to death already. So now let's look at another one of Anne's requirements. She wanted a system where it's easy to add users. Well, one of the worst models in the world is per user pricing. So every time you want to add a user, it's going to cost you another $3,000-$4,000 a year. People just don't add users. It becomes ineffective. What Acumatica does is basically say, look, let's get all the users on the system. Even if you've just got to do 1 or 2 tasks a month, why should we punish you for that? So they base it on consumption instead. And how we calculate that for a mining company, we just look at these transactions, purchase orders, receipts, AP bills, and payments. The highest number of those in a month dictates your tier. And your tier basically says, okay, this is the computing resources we're going to give you, and it should handle this level of transactions. Now, the common question that I get at this point is people say, yeah, but what happens if I get over that amount? And it's a legitimate question, but to give you some comfort on that, of all of our mining clients using Acumatica, only one of them has ever exceeded 50% of their tier. So Acumatica is extremely generous with the tier allowances, and you really don't have to move up at all. In our experience, the tier that you get is fine for exactly the product that's assigned to you. So adding users is another requirement that Anne had, and we've addressed that requirement. So what about the other thing? The auditors want to see segregation of duties. They want to see some evidence that journal entries are created by one person and posted by the other, that purchase requisitions are not approved by the same person that created them, all of those sorts of things. Well, highly configurable work approval maps and workflows are embedded into the system. They're not an add-on, they're embedded, right? Clear audit trails. And then security. So Acumatica offers 2 levels of security. There's application level security, which Acumatica achieves through roles, a system where every person is able to view, create, and work in a system based on who they are and what they're given access to. Infrastructure level security. So Acumatica has the most secure infrastructure for SMBs, for small companies. Amazon Web Services. It provides the best security in the world. So the system is reliable. It's always up and running, serving thousands of customers, tens of thousands of users, and hundreds of millions of transactions. So we've really addressed this issue at all. So we talked a lot about don't start small, and that's, I think, the advice that we can give you is start with a scalable solution instead. But the reality of it is most of you have something. So you're faced with convertophobia. You are facing that fear now. So what do you do then? Well, that's where we come in. So if you're in a mining company and you're faced with the fact that you have to convert no matter your best wishes and you've got convertophobia, talk to us. This is what we do. So we've done this for over 26 years. We know what we're doing. We're able to ease our clients through a conversion process and get you running on the new system. Ideal is you start with Acumatica. Second best is you convert to Acumatica, and we can help you with both. So with that, I would like to turn it over to Doug at this point, and Doug will give you a look and feel of Acumatica.
Thank you, Paul. I much appreciate it. And I love the intro. I'll be referring back to it as I start showing the software here. At this point, you should be able to see my screen, and you're going to see the first thing that appears is an Acumatica dashboard. I'm assuming most of you haven't used Acumatica before. I'm going to spend 1 to 2 minutes, and then I'm going to describe all the things that Paul mentioned, how you can start small and seamlessly grow as your business grows. So over here, you'll see we have these workspaces. Everything's grounded in the financial model. You can see there's lots of different screens, reports, everything here. If it's a little too confusing, you can hit this show less button and see this, and things like making journal entries. Also over here, you have your cash management. If you need to do banking, AP, AR, all of those things exist. But frankly, I never really use these very much personally. I always go up to the global search bar to find what I'm looking for. So if I'm looking for, for example, a profit and loss statement, I'll just start typing profit and loss, and all my different P&L reports show up. If I'm looking to enter a journal transaction, I start typing that and things come up. If I'm looking for a specific bill or a specific customer, I can just hit the button and you'll see my search now goes from looking for a particular screen to a particular customer, invoice, order, whatever it might be. If I'm confused about something doing with ABC, I can see this and all the different things here that help me out. In this case, it's an inventory management issue, ABC codes, where the help topics come in. They're built into the software. And then last but not least, I can even search through files. There's a file attachments that are connected to each transaction that you make. So you can attach an auditable transaction. If you get a bill from a customer, or from a vendor, you can automatically upload it and recognize it, and then it keeps a copy associated with that. So speaking of that, let's go take a look at some bills and adjustments. These will be our different vendors sending us bills as you might start off. I have this first one here. I'm going to drill into it. Everything in Acumatica, you can drill down. You'll see this is a simple bill entry. I enter basically a vendor. I put in a description and then I add a line. This is just an administrative charge. Now you can see that this administrative charge looks pretty, flat on the surface, but a lot of things may have happened to this in the past. So to do that, I'm going to go over here and I'm going to pull up an audit history of everything that's been going on with this behind the scenes. So my audit history is going to cover that originally the admin, that's who I am up here, created this record and added all this information. But then you'll see one of my accountants, Layla Boyvar, came along and she made an accounting correction for me because I'm not the accountant, and updated the account number. And then another user, Joe Becker, came in and he updated the cost. It looks like he gave him a bit of a discount. Now, maybe Joe is a friend of this particular, maybe he's a friend of the vendor and got us a lower price or something when he called him up. So all these sorts of things can be reconciled and done. Now, speaking of Joe Becker, let me go get him. Acumatica allows you to have multiple windows open. So actually, let's say goodbye to him for a second. If I go back to my fields here, I can go back to my dashboard that I had. And as an AP clerk, you'll see I can get a different view of the world than I did as my controller. The AP clerk, these are all configurable. So if I can hit the design button, everything's drag and drop. It's a web-based app, so you don't need any software downloads or anything, and you can rearrange these things however you want, add new widgets, and do as you choose to arrange your dashboards. Now it's time. Let's see if I can bring Joe back over for a second. You'll notice that Joe is a project manager, so he'd be someone that would be working on one of your projects. And as such, you can see he's only part of my products company. Remember, Paul mentioned that you can grow by adding companies and different locations as well. So this is a very simple structure where we have a product and a couple of companies underneath our revision products company. Over here, however, my admin gets access to the capital company, which might be one of the taking track of investments and other things. The products company that you saw Joe had access to, and maybe some services that go out and take place as well. So all those things are done. And most importantly, you can roll up all of that information into a standard project and loss dashboard. So if I go ahead and run this rolling 12-month P&L report, you'll see that I can have a structure that allows me to see how all of my P&L looks by company. And this is real-time items that I can drill into. So in the early stages, you're probably not generating a lot of revenue, but you're probably generating costs and that sort of thing. This is just a generic example. If I want to look at what my wholesale branch does, and you keep your eyes on the numbers, you can see I reduce a lot of that. If I want to see what my retail branch has, the consolidated product company, and then this is the roll-up of the entire corporation. So all these things are really easy to get, and this report designer is part of the overall system that you get out of the box. Now, Acumatica is a web-based system. We're a very strong technology company, and AI is one of the things that's coming up and you've probably heard of. So we can generate these types of reports all day long if we need to. So for example, I have some favorites here. I'm going to go grab this P&L quarterly report. So if I run this is going to show me what my first quarter of 2026 looks like versus the second quarter. But maybe I want some analysis related to this. Maybe I don't just want the standard report. For situations like that, I have this AI assistant. I can ask the AI assistant questions about my information, like give it some context. I'm an accountant that needs to generate a report and do a comparative one and make some recommendations. So it creates the same type of report that I have there, but then it gives these suggestions on things that I need to look into. Lots of information here that you can digest. And it also provides dashboards. These dashboards can be added directly to an Acumatica dashboard. So the days of creating your own dashboard are gone. I showed you how easy it was to drag and drop earlier and move things around. Well, you can just ask it questions. It produces the dashboards for you. And if you get one you happen to like, you can position it and add it. If I simply click this view chart here, it can go ahead and add that to my screen, and I can add that somewhere else. If I don't like the way these don't seem to be sorted by month, AI doesn't always do everything perfect. You can see I can come in here and sort a little bit differently. I can change that. Now I've got more of a standard progression of time that would be available for me. So all these things, once again, are available inside. Now, the other option you have is Acumatica can share data securely with an external system such as Claude. So I asked a very similar question, and those of you who are familiar with Claude, it's just an AI system, and now I can work directly in it, and I can ask a similar question, and it goes and it builds me this profit and loss statement. The profit and loss statement, once again, this would be later in your development as a mining company. You probably wouldn't have profits and losses, that you just have expenditures at this point. They can all exist as you see here, and then it lists some analysis. I did all this morning. It takes this about 2 to 3 minutes to run, so I didn't do it in front of you, but this is something that I can get a quick summary of what's going on, and it tells me where to focus my efforts and things to keep an eye on in terms of how things have moved. Similarly, if you are more into the balance sheet side of things, you can see here's a look at my balance sheet and what's going on and how that fares as well. So different ways of coming at the same problem. You can work inside Acumatica with the AI assistant, or you can work inside an AI tool as you need to do that. So let's talk about growth a little bit. One of the things that helps you grow is project accounting. So within here, you can go in and you can manage, Paul referred to these as projects. Projects are like mini areas where you can have expenses, even revenues flow into a specific project. So if I go into this one, this is an internal project, which means I'm building something. As I'm building something, you'll see my revenue budget is 0. I'm just building an asset in this case, or tracking expenses. If I come in here to my cost budget, I can keep track of a whole bunch of different things, and I can have an up-to-date balance regarding this. Now, the benefit of a project is, unlike a P&L sheet or something else, it can be project related, which means it's not related to your fiscal year or financial period, so it can run between years. So sometimes what it would be nice is if you can ask it, hey, let's go ahead and make a recommendation as to all that data you saw in these balances and cost budget. It's going to go out right now to an integrated AI that you can bring, and it's going to analyze all this and make a recommendation directly inside the system. Once again, AI does, this one has a decent amount of data, so we're going to have to wait 20 or 30 seconds to get it. Now, with AI, you can see it's kind of come up with, this project seems pretty on track, except it looks like we're overspending on travel. So it comes up and it takes a lot of data that you see here and summarizes it and tells you where to focus, and then of course make some recommendations. If I want to, with AI, I can save this, or I don't have to. And I can also even go in and do something like email the project manager and tell him to go look at it and create a task directly inside here. This helps me keep my building and expenses under control so as I associated with a project. Now, furthermore, I can continue growing, and I can add different modules very easily inside Acumatica. I showed you earlier that I can have different users, and you can add users without cost. I can also add companies if I need to do that. If I want to add companies, I just go into my companies screen, and I could go in and create a new one. So I have my main 3 that you see here. I would just simply click another one, and I could clone like the existing products company to create a new one on the fly, and it would automatically appear in my tree structure. I can also add, as I mentioned, I could also add users. Now, all the software that you get is contained in one simple package. That's the beauty of Acumatica. You're not bolting on inventory packages and you're not bolting on manufacturing and other things as you need it. Instead, I'm going to go to this screen called Enable Disable Features. And when you purchase another module through licensing, behind the scenes, I'm going to show you what will really happen. So you just go through here, and now you can enable whatever you want. You'll see there's several different things on here that I can enable. And in this case, let's go in and find manufacturing. So 1 second. So I'm going to go ahead and turn on my manufacturing module. Now, normally this could be a third party or something else. In my case, all I got to do, I'm going to make it a little easier than it actually is, because you would have to configure these modules. But now you'll see that in addition to everything else I had, I can go in and find something like a bill of materials that I didn't have. So these are the things I can build. I can also find production orders, which go in, and you'll also see several different several different dashboards become available to me if I want to start the production of that. So once again, you're not talking about, there's no fear of converting into something else. All you've got to do is simply add modules and capabilities directly inside Acumatica. Now, the last thing I'll mention is that we can scale differently. We can also add, as you grow, instead of just adding software and modules, we can also scale your server. So this is a high-level view of what's going on with Acumatica's SaaS architecture. We have an application server. You don't have to worry about this. We update it. We provide all the updates for you. You simply bring a browser. And then in the back end, we have a database. You'll notice you can come in as a user, as I've been showing you, in a browser, but you also have a mobile phone, an Android or iOS device that has the same, has abilities that are more associated with an app, so that it's easier to use on the landscape or on the total screen space you have available on a mobile phone. We allow integrations with external systems. If you have other external systems or things that are not provided in Acumatica that you need to use, we can easily connect in through REST APIs to add additional things that you need for a best-in-class module of some sort. We're always conscious of costs, so if you don't want to use REST APIs or other things that are a little more technical in nature, you can simply download and upload Excel spreadsheets. That's called integration services. And then I already showed our AI, where all the AI that comes in also runs through the same security that users, mobile phones, and external systems do, so that if somebody types in a screen February 30, they get an error. If an external system tries to push February 3rd, it gets the same error. And if AI, in its infinite wisdom, decides that February 30 is a good time to place an order to make sure you have enough inventory, it gets the same error as everybody else. Now, scaling up, we often operate on AWS. So as you need to, we can scale your resources. You can add users that you want, as you want, and as your business scales and you have more transactions, we can scale up for you so that you can we have companies with hundreds of thousands of transactions per day that are available to be purchased, processed, and run. So the general takeaway, we scale up, we scale across. We can scale by number of users, we can scale by the total processing flow, and then we can also add software real quickly through this enable disables feature. Paul, I'm going to turn it back to you.
Awesome. Thank you, Doug. Really appreciate that. So I mentioned earlier in the presentation, mining companies operate all over the world, and we have an office in Peru, and of course Peru has different taxation rules, different reporting requirements. Ecuador has different reporting requirements. Mexico does. So Acumatica supports the concept of localization. So some localizations are included with the product, and some are developed by partners in those regions. So in all of those countries that I mentioned, we have localizations, and the system operates just fine. And the point about that is that your Canadian headquarters would be running on Canadian accounting rules and reporting regulations, and in exactly the same system, you can connect to your company in Peru. And it's all integrated into one solution with local requirements handled perfectly.
I'll add one thing, Paul. I didn't show a lot of the intercompany activities that we support out of the box, but there's a lot of that as well if you have transactions that go about across your companies, as long with eliminations.
Excellent. So as I mentioned, we're kind of surprised looking at our clients that are heavy users of the system that they're getting nowhere close to their consumption limits. So to start off, I think Acumatica provide some very generous limits on consumption. But if you do exceed, what tends to happen is if you're exceeding for 1 month, probably nothing happens. But if we start to see a trend, we'll be notified by Acumatica. We'll get in touch with you, and we would recommend an upgrade. And the upgrade is not a conversion or anything like that, but simply purchasing the next level of the next tier level for transactions. So it's very simple to do. The system doesn't stop operating or anything like that. It basically is just a choice that you make to move to the next level.
And I'm going to jump in again, Paul, just because I
Yeah.
like to. I didn't also show the license screen, monitoring screen, and there's also another system monitor screen that you get that's part of your system, so you can keep an eye on how close and what percentage you've reached in real time on that, just so you can better prepare for what's coming.
Great for your IT guys to keep an eye on things like that. So in the license agreement with Acumatica, I think one of the very few ERP companies that would do this, they guarantee no more than a 10% increase. In our experience, on average, it's been around 5 or 7% per year. So nothing like the horror stories that we have heard from clients that are moving from other systems where the upgrade, once they got you, they take advantage of that with ridiculous upgrades. Acumatica tends to take a very honest and reasonable approach to price increases. Excellent. Well, thank you very much for your time. And you see on the screen, there's my contact information. If you have any questions at all, please feel free to give me a call or send me an email or even connect with me on LinkedIn. Thank you very much.